The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, California. Welcome to another Ask the Experts special show today. I love this expert. This expert, I think, is going to change my life. There's a very, very good chance because everything she has taught me so far shows me it's working. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But we want to welcome to the show. I am your host, Steve-O. And for the next about 22, 23 minutes, we're going to be talking about snoring. Actually, how to stop snoring. And if you've got sleep apnea, you have a relationship that's just driving you crazy, you do not want to miss today's show. Let me welcome you, our guest, our expert, Janet Bennett.
Hello.
Hi, Janet.
How are you?
Well, I got to tell you, Janet, you have really, so far, my fingers are crossed, but I'm actually not even worried about it anymore. It's changed my life. And I just want to tell everybody before I let you go at it that I have sleep apnea, probably the worst case of it. And they had to put me on a special machine. It was horrible. I understand about relationships, what it could do to your relationship. And it's a little on the embarrassing side. But God brought Janet Bennett into my life. She's a speech language pathologist, but I'm going to let her tell her story about how she got involved with sleep apnea and snoring. Go for it, Janet.
Okay. Thank you for having me. And it's not that I've saved your life, Steve. You are doing exercises as I have prescribed, and you are the one that's done the work. Okay. So that's a Yahoo for you. That's great. And anybody can do that. Okay. It's easy, right?
Jenna, it's not hard. It's not like a big deal. It's just knowing what to do.
Right. Okay. So here's what happened. I've been in private practice for more than 30 years and specialize in the treatment of tongue thrust. I'm sure you've seen people who have buck teeth. They have their teeth stick out because when they swallow, their tongue pushes the back of their teeth. That's called a tongue thrust. Some people have a lisp. So that sun is thun. And they also have a tongue thrust. And the reason that I've connected tongue thrust to snoring is because a person who has a tongue thrust, and there are a lot of people with a tongue thrust, that their tongue lives real close to their lips. And when they lay down to sleep, it's no wonder that their tongue, since it's so big for their mouth, also is going to push those lips open and makes them mouth breathe. There are many things that happen. It's like a domino effect, actually. Just thought about that. So you start with a tongue thrust, and then you're sleeping, and your tongue is allowed to see. With a tongue thrust, your tongue is allowed to just be fat and happy. It doesn't have to stay toned and inside your mouth like everybody else's. So that's what leads to mouth breathing. And then it leads to snoring. And then as this person snores longer and louder, it could lead to sleep apnea, which could could kill you, because every time that you have an episode where your tongue totally blocks your airway, you're not breathing, and you are dependent on your brain to make you snort and wake up and get out of it. Okay. And so that hurts your heart every time that you stop breathing. So
Very dangerous, isn't it?
yes, it is. So with that said, one day, probably 20 years ago, I was treating a 14-year-old football player, and he had a tongue thrust. When he swallowed, his tongue didn't push in the right place on the roof of his mouth. And so I have a 7-week program. So he came to see me one day a week for exercises. Well, he had come 2 weeks. So he came to visit me for his 3rd week. And his mom stuck her head in the door and she said, "What are you doing to Adam?" And I said, "I don't know. What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, he's always been the loudest snorer in the world. He rattles the windows, and now he's not making a sound." Well, I didn't know anything about snoring. And I turned to Adam and I said, "Adam, tell me more." And he said, "Well, it's true. I'm waking up with more energy. I'm not tired. I can concentrate in school. I'm making better grades, and I run faster." So those are the 4 words that really got my attention, because
Right.
obviously I didn't know about snoring. And so after our meeting, I got on the internet, of course, and I knew that when I looked up treatment for snoring, that I was going to find that they do tongue exercises. I was shocked when I did not find that. I found that they do crazy things like, well, the CPAP machine is very important because it keeps you alive. Okay.
Yes.
If you have severe sleep apnea, that you've got to have that. And some with, just a middle or not so severe sleep apnea. A lot of people need that to sleep at night and get some energy. But anyway, so I found that they would do surgery. They could cut off the bottom of your uvula, that thing that hangs down in the back, thinking that that was getting in the way. Okay, I've never made that connection, but anyway, it never worked. People were it was a severely sore surgery. Anyway, that didn't work. And so then they would, the dentist or orthos could break your jaw and pull it forward so that it made your airway bigger. So that, I don't know, were they thinking that maybe your tongue still wouldn't take up the whole airway? I'm not sure about that, but I guess they were hoping it wouldn't totally occlude it. And then let's see what else. There are drugs. There are many drugs out there to take to sleep. And so anyway, these things didn't work. So I was just flabbergasted that no one was doing tongue exercises. Okay. So with that said, I thought I had to save the world. So I spent the next, well, I'm still doing it. Spent the next year and a half making my own program. I found 86 people all over the United States who would be my guinea pigs and let me treat them with my exercises and make sure that I was using the right exercises and I was wording it right. Because everything that I've done is on the internet and it is so user friendly. Because, there aren't enough of me. There's not enough of me to save everybody from that. And training the trainers is kind of a daunting task. So it's there for the person to do it themselves. I've made it super easy. But anyway, so these 86 people did this program for me, and 94% stopped snoring. This is important. 94% stopped snoring.
That's
no
amazing.
one's ever heard of that many people stopping snoring with one program. So anyway, that has kept me excited. I work with people who every day, and I watch their lives change when they aren't breathing through their mouth anymore. And people don't understand all the different things that are connected to mouth breathing, like restless sleeping. You might have messy bed sheets. How crazy is that, to connect
Yes.
messy bed sheets with mouth breathing?
And I didn't think about it until you told me, Jan.
I know.
I
It's
didn't even
crazy.
think about that.
Yeah. And so what happens is the person is, and most people do not know this, When you wake up with a dry mouth, you wake up with a sore throat that goes away quickly. You wake up with a headache that goes away quickly. You might
Yes.
wake up very irritable. There are a lot of kids out there who are so irritable when they wake up. Well, and adults too. Anyway, that all is because of mouth breathing. Okay. Let's see what else. Restless leg
Janet, I got to stop you for a minute.
Okay.
We are getting all kinds of text. I've got 6 people want to know why. They want to know why. Well, first of all, what kind of doctor do you go to see if you have thrust, and why hasn't my dentist said anything to me about my thrust?
Great questions. Okay. So the tongue thrust, yes, I get most of my referrals from dentists and orthodontists. A lot of dentists and orthodontists don't believe in a tongue thrust. They do not believe that
Oh,
the tongue could be strong enough to move the teeth. Okay. They just don't accept it. Okay. So there really isn't a doctor other than a dentist identifying your tongue thrust, or a speech therapist like myself. We could identify the tongue thrust. And sometimes I'll get somebody to come see me and they have braces on, and I find out it's their 3rd set of braces. And that's because they have a tongue thrust. Their dentist either didn't identify it or didn't think it was important enough to send them to a speech therapist for treatment. Okay. And some dentists think that they have the treatment, like putting a Cheerio up on the roof of your mouth. And I just cringe when I think about that, because that's going to scratch my tongue up. But anyway, so for whatever reason, a lot of people fall through the cracks and never make it to a speech therapist for tongue exercises. And not all speech therapists know how to work with tongue thrust, because it's not, the schools won't allow speech therapists to work on tongue thrust because it's not an educational problem. Of course, they don't understand that, the way the child feels mentally about themselves can turn out to be an educational problem. Okay. So anyway, speech therapist. And if you out there listening, and the viewers and the listeners, if you have a tongue thrust and you don't know what to do, check out my website, and or the Stop Snoring at losangeles.com. And you can get in contact with me. The other thing is, if you do think that you found somebody, you have to ask them, do you have experience in treating a tongue thrust? Okay. So anyway, this person I was telling you had 3 sets of braces. And so her dentist had just kept putting braces on. Her teeth would move back when he took them off. And so he'd put them on again, and they would move back like buck teeth. Did that 3 times. And finally, she somehow found my door. So you've got to be proactive about this. If you suspect that you have a tongue thrust, and your tongue thrust, if you'll swallow right now, swallow your saliva. If you're listening to me or watching me, swallow your saliva. And what does the tip of your tongue push against inside your mouth when you swallow? Is it the back of your teeth, or top teeth, or back of your bottom teeth? Is it the skin part right on your upper palate? If so, that's where it should be. That's the magic spot. So you can also, here's one little quick lesson for you. You can say the word door out loud, and notice where your tongue pushes against the roof of your mouth for the duh sound. And it's right, it should be right behind your teeth. So door, here's another one, no and to. Those are 3 words, door, no, to. Your tongue should go to that spot behind your teeth 3 times, door, no, to. Anyway, so that's the spot that your tongue should be in whenever you swallow. So, and if you've got a glass of water nearby, take a swallow of that water and immediately put your tongue up on that spot when you swallow. And the swallow's like a wave, and it goes down, and it just feels great because you're in control. That's a real quick lesson about getting you started with tongue thrust control. Okay.
How much, Janet? We're getting a lot of questions. People wanting to know how much does having tongue thrust have to do with snoring?
Okay, that's a great question. So, if you have a tongue thrust, you probably breathe through your mouth. We've got to put that out there right now.
Hmm.
And that's another thing that people deny quite often. Because I guess they picture people with their mouth wide open,
Yeah.
and everything hanging out. But you can breathe through your mouth with just a small hole right there. Some people don't breathe through their mouth in the daytime, but they do at nighttime. So that's what we're talking about specifically at nighttime. And so, as a tongue thruster, like I said, you're breathing through your mouth. Wake up with a dry mouth, and you can confirm to yourself that you are a mouth breather. So, what was the question?
Well, no, it seems like there's like a lot of parents out
Oh,
there that are
snoring. How does
writing.
it lead to snoring? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. How does it lead to snoring? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes,
So you're tongue thrusting, you're breathing through your mouth at night. Well, when you breathe through your mouth, air goes in and out, and it makes a noise. Okay?
yes,
That you don't even have to call it snoring. You can just call it mouth breathing. But it's going to happen whether you want it to or not if your lips are open. So that's why I concentrate a lot on nasal breathing instead of mouth breathing. Got to keep your lips closed. And I would like to throw in a little story. Go ahead before I start my little story.
no. Well, it seems like there's a lot of mothers that are listening today that are
Okay.
upset that their dentist never told them that one of the reasons their child is snoring is tongue thrust they've
Well,
never heard before, and they're a little
okay.
upset
Hold
about
on.
that.
Hold on. Okay. I love hearing that
Okay.
question, but I have to clear something up now. Let's see. Snoring. Let's say the child is snoring, but the child may not have a tongue thrust. Okay.
Okay.
So not all snorers have a tongue thrust, but I'm
Okay.
going to bet that most tongue thrusters have mouth breathing and snoring going on. Okay. So you can get
I bet
upset
you're
with your
right.
dentist. Maybe, well, you really can't. It's difficult when it's just snoring because you know what? Here's the thing. And this is when when I get on my soapbox, this is the main thing I question, and that is why don't dentists and doctors, why doesn't anyone in the medical field ask you if you breathe through your mouth or your nose? You
That's
see,
right.
if
They
they would
don't.
ask the minute they don't, not even dentists. And I've tried to train all the ones that I know that refer to me, and if they would just learn immediately, oh, Mrs. Jones is a mouth breather. Oh, she's got GERD. She's got restless legs. She's got high blood pressure. She's anxious. She's got all these problems. Well, why don't we teach her how to nasal breathe first? Because our body makes a gas, and it's called nitric oxide, NITRIC. You need to Google it. Nitric oxide is a gas that we make. We make it in our sinus area. Okay. So it's sitting there in your sinus area. You need nitric oxide because every night when you go to sleep, it goes to work. It regulates the oxygen flowing in your blood. I'm not a doctor, but it hits just about every organ. It takes care of regulating so much of your body to get you ready for the next day. Now, the reason I'm saying this is when you breathe through your mouth, you get dirty, cold air in. When you breathe
Yes.
through your nose, it's warm and clean because of those hairs that God put in your nose. Okay. Now, when you breathe through your mouth, you cannot, because the nitric oxide is made up here in your nasal sinuses, you cannot take advantage of that gas. When you
No.
breathe through your mouth, it bypasses the nitric oxide.
Wow.
So think about what I just said. If you mouth breathe your
So,
entire life, you will never get the natural gas that your body wants to use to help regulate you. And that's why you have all these other physical problems.
wow, that is amazing. It seems like you get a fair amount of kids that come to your practice.
Well, I do. I do. Tongue thrust, people who have tongue thrust, I don't know how many of it started as a child, but I'm going to say a great percentage of it did, and if not 90%, because we're all born with the tongue thrust. But by the age of 1 year, 12 months, it's a reflex and it should go away on its own. But if that child continues to do something to encourage tongue thrusting, like letting a bottle hang out of their mouth, or sucking a thumb or fingers, or different little habits that they get into, and it involves the movement of the tongue, then that's going to prohibit them from getting out of that reflex. And so that
That's right.
habit grows and grows and grows. And before you know it, they're just big tongue thrusters. And they will not outgrow that, not when they get older. So they have to have help. But then they go to school, and the school speech therapists are not allowed to treat tongue thrust because it's not an educational problem, as I said. And so what do? The kids get lost when they get out of school at grade 12. My goodness, they're 18 now, and they've got a bigger tongue thrust. You see,
Right.
So so where I live, my community knows me as the tongue thrust lady, and all the speech therapists know me, and they do their best to send those parents to me, knowing that they're not going to be able to help them at school. It's a real catch-22. It's a sad story. Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, we've only got a couple minutes left. I want to tell everybody, first of all, if you're listening on radio, we're going to give you Janet's phone number first, because we've been running it during the TV portion. Janet, give everybody your phone number.
Okay. It's 828-285-8814. Please call me with all your questions. I'd love to help you. Okay, Steve, I'll save my great story for next time.
You know what? What's so amazing about this show, and I've got a story too. Someone just wrote us, "Why isn't your show longer?" You know what?
Oh,
if we did an hour, you would be saying the same thing. But we have got so much information that we're going to be giving you. And I cannot wait to tell my story again, because I am actually on Janet's program. And we'll talk, I promise you, we'll talk about this next time, because I am having some incredible results. Janet, give everybody your phone number one more time.
Okay. It is 828-285-8814.
And you know what I'm going to tell everybody now, because my phone is ringing off the wall because we print out there. You can text us during the show, but we're going to really start taking questions on our next show, where you can actually call in and speak to Janet.
Good.
Because apparently there's a lot of people out there that are a little nervous about coming on radio. It's easy. It's a piece of cake. Janet, I love you. What you've done for my life is amazing. And Janet will be back with us again for California next month as well. Okay. We're going to go to break right now. When we come back, we're going to be talking about weight loss. Thanks, Janet.
Thank you. Bye.
That's Janet Bennett. She has scored on something that is so important, and I wish we did have more time, but it's actually time now for a show that's becoming probably the most important show. I'm going to share that with you. Is Dr. Gupta there yet? We're waiting on Dr. Gupta right now. Okay, he'll be jumping on with us in just a minute.
Yes, he's in the green room.
Dr. Gupta, I'm sorry?
Yes, he's in the green room.
Oh, let's bring him on. There he is.
Hey,
hi,
Steve.
Dr. Gupta. How are you?
Good. Apologize if I was a little delayed.
I got to tell you something. we're starting this week to take your questions by text, and I'm going to read your questions and give those to Dr. Gupta. So we're going to do a little bit different. I cannot believe how many people texted us. We have enough questions to last us for the next 2 or 3 years.
That's awesome.
And the last time Dr. Gupta was on with us, I am dying to know who the celebrity was that called us and texted us. But I got to tell you, and I'm going to let Dr. Gupta introduce himself today, but I want to tell people something, why this show is so important to me. I am overweight. I am way overweight. And excuse me, that's never happened before. Anyway, that's when they say it went down the wrong pipe. I have 4 major medical problems. Every one of them relate to weight. Yeah. That's how important weight loss is. Dr. Gupta, tell people about your practice, first of all.
Yeah, so basically, my practice is called Mindful Weight Loss. It's based in Redondo Beach, but we see patients virtually everywhere, all over California, multiple other states. We're about to start physical offices in Nevada and Arizona as well. And so what I describe what we do is a combination of evidence-based medicine with a very holistic and comprehensive approach that incorporates everything from coaching, mindfulness, classes, talking about like physical activity, nutrition, and time management, stress, all of it, because it's all on the table, as I like to say, because weight is just very complicated. It's related to literally everything else in our lives, as you were alluding to, Steve.
Why is everything related to weight, Dr. Gupta? I have a kidney problem. I have sleep apnea, high blood pressure, and they're all related to my weight.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, 70% of us struggle with it, right? So it's kind of the underlying cause of so many different things, whether it's insulin resistance, it's causing some diabetes. For sleep apnea, it's because, when we have excess tissue, it causes closure of our trachea when we're sleeping. And there's also some other mechanisms for like blood pressure and everything else. But fortunately, we can actually treat all those conditions by weight loss. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I fell in love with this field, is because often before, even when I was in med school residence, it was all about treating, the diseases after they develop. But this is a way to prevent and even cure some of these intractable diseases. And there's actually ways to do this, right, that are beyond just willpower or all this other nonsense that is usually perpetuated in the world, right? Like, this isn't our fault, right? This is a function of our bodies in this world we have created, where I say there's like 14 McDonald's from here to anywhere, right? And that's the problem.
No, yours are In-N-Out burgers. That's what.
Yeah, we have In-N-Out, TikTok. We have all of it. We have all of it. So,
Dr. Gupta, it really affects people mentally too.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, in multiple ways, right? One way is, we've created a world where it's extremely easy to gain weight, and then we made everyone feel bad about it, right?
Right.
And again, this comes back to that willpower narrative, and that, when we perpetuate this idea that it's all our faults, right? And then, the people who struggle with it, which is, again, the majority of us, right? Then it comes down to people's value, their worth, or whatever, right? And it's like, oh, that person's doing it, I'm not, there's something wrong with me. And it's just all of these ideas and thoughts we have in our brains, right? Not to mention all of the health effects also that relate to sleep and everything else as well that contribute.
Well, I've got so many people that have written us this week, Dr. Gupta. It was really hard to decide which ones to put on, but I got to tell you, we had a lot of females that contacted us, and they didn't really have a question. It was more like, thank you for bringing this show to us. And I've had people say, I'm never going to miss a show. I sit down, I write, I take notes.
Really
I had
sweet.
a lady that they do cards every Tuesday, and now they play our show in the background. That's pretty incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm going to, because we've just started this new format, I'm going to give you the name, where they're from, and I'm going to give you their question. Dr. Gupta has not heard these questions before, and this is not Stump the Doctor, I promise you. So let's start off with Sharon in Brentwood. Hi, Dr. Gupta. Thank you so much for giving us such great information. I plan on making an appointment. Good. Must be a cousin of yours.
Awesome.
Appointment with your clinic. Weight loss is so hard. Weight loss is so hard. How does your concept different from all the others out there?
I think so often, right? And what I've seen everywhere, even in the kind of most benign version, is all about like trying harder, right? It's all about, you have to try harder, no pain, no gain. You can do this, even like the most kind version of that argument, right? But I think that misses the complete point. Again, going back, that this is a biological condition, right? A function of our bodies in this food environment. And there's so multifactorial, right? It has to do everything. Like if you have a 2-hour commute and you have to, you get something on the way there, you're miserable on the way back, you're stressed, you come home, you don't have time to make food, right? All of that comes into this, right? So what we do is address all of it, right? Like nothing is off the table. And the other thing that I think is really important is that too often the perfectionist, kind of thinking comes into this play. Like you have to just eat like 5 salads a day or whatever, right? Like there's no right way to do this. It's not about being keto or paleo or Whole30 or whatever. You don't have to do everything. You just have to do enough. That's all. Right. And I think there's no morality to this, right? It's not like you're better for doing this or you're better for doing that. Like there's no morality in eating a cookie or not eating a cookie. Right. And too often our brains frame it that way because of this, our conditioning, right? We think, oh, I'm a much better person because I don't eat that cookie. Right. None of that is true. So it doesn't matter. Right. We just have to figure out how we can optimize people's, habits, their lives in a way that actually fits and makes it actually easy. That's the key, right? It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter.
We got so many letters, Dr. Gupta, from people who were actually literally mad at themselves. It was either about working out or, in their case, not working out, skipping workouts, the food, eating the food, but they were actually mad at themselves and for not having enough control for either working out or dining.
I love this question because I think that this is so common, right? And again, it's a function of that willpower narrative. But first of all, we don't even stress physical activity at the beginning, right? And so it's good for a lot of things, but not as much specifically if we're talking about weight loss, right? But what I always say is that often we have this idealized state that we always try to go to, again, that perfectionism. And when we can't inadvertently do it because there's causes and conditions in our life that make it hard, we feel more and more guilt and shame. And our brains think that when we miss a workout and we feel bad, that's helping us, right? It's going to say our brains think, well, this is going to help me do it in the future, but actually it makes it so much harder. Right. So I have a patient and I remember having a conversation and they were like, I was thinking about I'm sitting there and thinking how I want to lose weight and all this. And then I go to the cabinet and eat something. Right. And they're like, why do I do this? And they feel oh, I'm not being rational, but that's a complete rational response because what they're doing is making them feel so crappy. Right. And all we want to do is escape suffering. So it makes sense why we want to eat something, get a small dopamine hit so we're not feeling so miserable about ourselves. Right. So it's just such a
That's exactly right.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so let's go to Carrie in Beverly Hills. I've listened to your show twice now. You make a lot of sense, but no matter if I starve myself or gorge, it never seems to work. I also wonder how much my workout is helping me or not helping me.
Yeah, so it is more nuanced, right? I'd say with everything, but that's what we do. Like what we do is just we have to get a lot more details about people's lives, right? Like I never say like we don't advocate any cookie cutter approach. Like everyone does this, or like I know there's programs that put like everyone on this low carb diet or whatever, right?
Exactly.
And like we spend an hour talking to people on our first visit, so we really get to know people, and I think that's really important. So to kind of understand that listener's questions, I think we'd have to get into a little bit of detail, but in general, we just gotta you can't compare it to anybody else in the universe, and we got to see what you're doing, what's the rate of weight loss or not weight loss or weight gain, and how we can optimize that just enough that fits in the context of their lives, right? That's kind of how I'd approach it.
Dr. Gupta, if you just think about it, all these diets out there is based on everybody doing the same thing. But in reality, what you do that is different, that really makes sense, is you're saying not everybody is the same. So not everybody should be doing the same. And you got to find out what the problem is first.
Yes, yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly true, right? You got to figure out what
Which
is
no
going
one
on.
does that though.
Yeah, no, it's actually a good point, right? Because everyone's like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. But no, you got to like, what's actually some of the challenges in people's actual lives, right? And what I frame that as is really practicing a lot of self-compassion, right? Often those reasons we say like, oh, I should just be able to get up and work out, or I should just be able to eat this and not that, right? But no, people aren't taking into account their time, energy, desire with everything, right? We got to figure out what those reasons are, and then we have to take them seriously, right? This isn't something because I tell my patients, we don't use the word lazy, we don't use any of those words, right? Because it's not about that, right? It's about, because often what those words and all those things do is they shut down kind of any ideas, right? We can't get true interventions unless we take all of it seriously. But then we can figure out what direction we need to actually go to, help optimize the situation.
Here's this is a good one. Here's a patient of yours, Steve in Long Beach, said he actually took your course, very successful at it, and then he got a new job and it hurt him because he stopped doing a lot of the things he learned in your program. So his is blaming it on a new job.
Well, I think that life circumstances, I mean, I'd love if you reached out back to us. We can definitely help him. This isn't like, it's not about doing the same thing and doing that forever. It's about constant like adapting, right? Like the world is going to be different. Like if one thing works at one time in one period of your life, it's not necessarily going to work at another time, another period. And often what happens, so I've struggled with weight, and I know this feeling, like often something has worked in our lives and that becomes like our baseline. And then we always try to go back to that thing, right? But that thing probably isn't working for a reason, right? Because we have a new commute, we have a new job, we have more stress, we have something else that we have to figure out different strategies for.
And stress actually works against you when it comes to losing weight?
Oh, tons. So stress, irrespective of calories, I've seen a ton of times that contributes to making this difficult, but also because of calories, because again, the number one principle of being a human is we all seek to escape from suffering, right? And if we're stressed, we come home and there's some chips there and we eat them, it makes logical sense. It's not like someone's lazy or bad or whatever. It just means that we're all trying to escape that suffering from stress that we have.
We didn't say it this time, but I want people to know that Dr. Gupta, I wouldn't say gave up, but you were still are an internist.
Yes.
And you've changed your practice over. The reason I bring it up is, doesn't it just drive you crazy. I know when I was growing up, after school, there were sidewalks, we went out and played, we
Yeah.
were active. Nowadays, kids come home, go right to the computer, your
Yeah.
games, and sit there. I mean, that because you know what that's going to do to these kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of societal factors in all of this, right? And actually, so this was a good opportunity to like, I am, with my expansion of my practice and stuff, I'm bringing on this other doctor, Dr. Amit Mishra, who's a pediatric ICU, and that is something we are going to start exploring in the future, incorporating a pediatrics program, specifically to help this population and coming up with interventions to help a lot of this. But yeah, it's definitely one of the reasons, again, that is contributing to the problem.
Here's another Steve, and this is Beverly Hills. He said, I heard about your show and I tuned in for the first time last month. I wanted to hear one more show before I scheduled an appointment with you. Can you go over the first thing you do once a person comes in for their first visit with you?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing we do is schedule an hour appointment. And in that appointment, we ask really detailed questions about people's lives, right? Their weight history, kind of like how long have you struggled with weight, all of that, kind of like when you've lost weight, what's worked, then about their lives, jobs, families, all that. Do you like your job? Like your actual detailed, like how you're eating throughout the day, all of that. Medications, all the other standard stuff, sleep, stress, kind of just very detailed stuff. And from there, we come up with a treatment plan, right? Again, we organize it into kind of like 4 different buckets: the nutrition, behavior, physical activity, and medications. From there, we start the plan, and then we see, either me or my nurse practitioner see everyone every month. We have also, in addition to health coach appointments available, we're starting classes as well. So I have a mindfulness-based stress reduction course I'm teaching, where we're starting classes on stress, on belly breathing. Our goal is to create this really, and we're developing this platform, this tech platform that makes us all very integrated as well. So that's in the works as well. But really our goal is to create this really comprehensive, holistic wellness program that really addresses all of the assets, all of the, factors that lead to this.
Dr. Gupta, how do you work with a patient that needs to lose a lot of weight? And I always used to say, wait a minute, it took you 15 years to get like this, and now you expect it in 15 minutes or hours or days. It doesn't work that way. How do you keep your patient's attention span and not let them start because of time?
Sure. So, it's interesting. I've been asked that question a lot, but by the time people see me and everything, I think people have they've tried a lot. They kind of understand how it works. And, for the most part, people are really understanding. Like our metric, okay, so how I explain it to patients, our metric is try to get 2-3 pounds max a week. That's our maximum, right? We don't want any more than that. You start losing muscle, starts coming back. So, we established that. And that's we're not always going to get that, but that's kind of what we try to aim for. We try to change things. We try to keep working on it, so patients have been pretty understanding of that. I think, we all kind of inherently feel like we know this is hard, right? I mean, we obviously know this is incredibly hard, right? And so, patients, for the most part, are very understanding that this is a journey, and that's kind of how we work at it. And we really, stress, we build in sustainability right from the beginning. So I think that's another approach that's really helpful. This isn't starve yourself for 3 weeks, right? And then it's so I think it's just we work on really helping people build very sustainable habits and changes in their lives that also, pay dividends in other ways. People are losing weight, but they're also feeling better in other ways, right? So it's a lot of different virtuous cycles that kind of keep showing people that this is working.
Here's a listener who must at least listen to the last 2 or 3 shows. This is Michelle in Malibu. The compassion-based approach. Can you go into more detail of this approach?
So I think this is kind of the basis of everything that I do, right? And I think that as you asked the difference, right? And I think this is kind of one of the main differences I would feel of my program. And what it is just again taking every challenge and reason why this is hard, right? From the biological, psychological, societal, like familiar, like all of it, right? Just like you don't like something, right? Taking all of that seriously. We never say, oh, you should be doing this, or you should be doing this, or you should be doing this, right? It's more about if something isn't working, we throw it out, right? We only do what's working, right?
Gotcha.
Not
Okay.
like my patients are like, oh, I'm so because often people go to programs like this and they feel like because of how other people in other programs might react to some judgment or you're not doing something right. It's just with us, you're never doing anything wrong, right? Because there is no wrong. You're just doing whatever, and we have to just work on what actually works in your life, right? So I think that's kind of like what a key differentiator between our program is, and I think that's just why it works, just because of practicing that compassion, right? That's the key to everything.
I think also, Dr. Gupta, what has made you so successful in this field is the way your communication skills are. And if you can teach those to your employees, you've got it made, because, I've read these letters and I listen to you, and I can just sit back and just listen to you. You make so much sense. And I've never said that about a weight loss product or a theory, or, we have the South Beach diet down here.
Sure.
It was a fad.
Yeah.
And these fads, they work for a while, but when they stop, they go straight down.
Sure.
And what you're teaching is a lifestyle, but you're teaching it that how you should be happy while you're doing this.
Yeah, I love that.
And you want to continue.
Yeah. So
I think one of the things that is helped make you so successful is your communications. And I want to tell people this: Dr. Gupta sponsors the entire Ask the Expert show. We're doing California today, and he also does Nevada for us. And I'm so glad that he is our title sponsor. Dr. Gupta, for the people who are listening on radio, let's give them your phone number.
Yeah, of course. So you could call, text, whenever you want at 310-220-4543. Again, that's 310-220-4543. And what we're striving to do, especially as we're growing and scaling up, is, like having lectures, like I take really seriously, creating this organization that really manifests these values, right? So like having, investing in all the people who work for me, like in whatever they're doing, like, personal training or sleep courses, having lectures, having other people give lectures, like giving constant feedback. So, really trying to really infuse everything of what I'm saying in the organization that we're creating as well.
Do you have a workout facility at your practice?
No, not at the moment. I mean, we have, so one of my staff members is a personal trainer. So she has programs we use to help with workouts and everything. The ultimate goal will be to have, probably like a place, like a kind of like a space where we can offer some of that a little bit, right? But not at this moment. But we do have, it's not like you have to have a crazy facility either. You can just
really
with like just certain weights and everything with good form, being careful and all that. But we advise on a lot of that as well.
Well, again, we want to thank you for being the title sponsor of the show.
Yeah.
And the name of the practice is Mindful Weight Loss. And Dr. Gupta will be back with us. I just want to say this real fast before we go off the air. If you missed part of the show today, you can go to iHeart or you can go to YouTube and find today's show and you can hear it again. It's in the iHeart library. You can also find it on YouTube. Dr. Gupta, please understand what I'm saying. We love you.
Thank you so much, Steve.
We'll see you again. Thanks, Dr. Gupta. And we will be back with you again next week with more Ask the Experts. We appreciate you tuning in. Thank you, Rebel. Always doing such a great job.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.